Welcome to the PropTech podcast. It's Kylie Davis here, and I'm delighted to be your host as we explore the brave new world where technology and real estate collide. I passionately believe we need to create and grow a sense of community between the innovators and real estate agents, and sharing our stories is a great way to do that. Now, the aim of each episode is to introduce listeners to a proptech innovator who is pushing the boundaries of what's possible, and to explore those issues and challenges raised by the tech and how they can create amazing property experiences. Now, my guests in this episode are Angus Ferguson and Daniel Portelli, the co-founders of Real-Time Agent, a point-of-sale platform that streamlines the sales process from end to end to make it faster and easier to transact. Now, the company started in Melbourne as BidTracker, an app that helped agents capture bidding data about their auctions, auto-generated clearance rates, and automated the reporting to major media publications. And they stunned the proptech community back in November last year when they announced that they had sold to Domain in a deal worth a total of $35 million when it completes at the end of the 2021 financial year. So Dan Portelli and Angus Ferguson, welcome to the PropTech podcast.
Thanks very much for having us.
Thank you. Thanks.
No worries. Now, Angus, I understand you're the one that's going to be doing the elevator pitch. What's the Real-Time Agent elevator pitch?
Beautiful. So basically what our product is, we're a point of sale solution for real estate agents. So we do everything from authorities, auction tracking, so BidTracker is the name of the product, through to digital contract signing. By doing those three products, what we're actually able to do is save 244 minutes per transaction.
Wow.
As an agent. So saving a huge amount of time, taking away a lot of the compliance as well, and just building it straight into the system. So no agents having to do their checklists anymore or anything like that. We handle all of that up front for them.
So let's drill down a little bit on that. What are the actual problems that you're solving for agents more than just taking a lot of time doing admin?
Yeah, so the main key thing is when we started this business, we started with BidTracker, which was auction reporting and solving the problem of how do you report your auctions on a Saturday, not only internally, but also to external parties like CoreLogic, Domain, REA.
Because that gets really tedious, doesn't it, for agents?
It does. If you look at an agency in Victoria, they're getting a phone call from Property Data, from realestate.com, from Domain and CoreLogic, and they're all asking for the same information. It's what was the price that you sold it for? Do you want to disclose it? And please give us the price, obviously, as well. So What we're able to do is just automate one simple problem. Where we went from there is we went to a lot of the businesses, or like some of the best businesses in Victoria, and said, show us all your process. Let's see what problem we should solve for you next. And what we identified is the two biggest catalysts for your workflow when you list a property and when you sell a property. And generally what's happening is when you list a property, everything comes back to the office and you kick off your process of organising photos, floor plans, send the letters to the lawyers, everything that goes on. Same as when you sell a property. So what we try to do is, instead of having this process of a helicopter view or different ways of managing workflow, is solve the problem up front, which is give the agent a tool, and then from that tool we can actually get the information, automate into different systems and automate a lot of their workflow.
Just following on from there, with BidTracker and agency agreements and digital contracts, the problems we solve across those is basically we speed up the signing process for the agent. We increase compliance, so the admin offices of different agencies really like that part of that as well. With BidTracker, we solve the reporting issue not only externally but internally as well, for agency principals, so they can see what their whole team has done for a particular day or week or month. And then with digital contracts, we solve the problem of having to sign 3 or 5 copies of the same piece of or same contract, I should say. And what we found there was that there was not a whole lot of continuity between the different documents. 3 or 5 different copies being done on the same day on the table at auction, for example. You'd have different settlement dates, that maybe because one person's speaking to the purchaser at one time, and the admin person might be filling it out. So single point of truth, and then distribute it out from there. That's the problems we solve across the 3 products.
Cool.
So if we give you an example of that, Kai, so if you got a sales price and it goes to 4 different data houses, either verbally or via an email, internally, so like Hocking Stewart, they had someone they'd employ on a Saturday who would sit there and call their offices, much the same as every other corporate. So you've got some kind of visibility over business on Saturday. And then you grab that sales price, you're putting it back into the CRM, the purchase data back in the CRM, and then small things along the way, like there's agencies that do sales to rentals form, so they're providing a lead to the property manager. We're able to just do that straight away by just having a button in there that says, are they non-occupied, yes or no? And if it's a no, then we're just sending that lead directly to the property manager in real time.
So I'm just quickly doing the maths because I can't do it in my head. 266 minutes, you said, per transaction.
So 244. If you're a business that does 150 sales a year, we're saving you about 76 days in admin.
Holy moly. Okay. Well, that's worth it.
Yeah. So how we arrived at that number, because it's usually something we get asked a lot because it's a pretty big number, is we actually went to offices with a stopwatch, sat there and said, go with your paper process, timed every incremental step. So things like scanning the contracts in, sending the letters off to the lawyers, all those things that I spoke about before, they're all 5-minute tasks with the same information, but they add up.
Yeah.
So we were actually able to justify it in that way, and now we've built a really cool calculator that we're actually able to send out to a client in a website so they can go through their own process and see how it impacts their business as well.
Because, 244 minutes is more than 4 hours, isn't it, that agents are spending for every single property that they're working on, and you wonder why you can't go home in time to have dinner with your kids. That's probably part of it.
If they're not completing that task, they're passing it on to somebody else. So we've seen this kind of growth of admin teams because they want salespeople to be able to make more calls to make more money. So there's this kind of paradigm of we just keep adding personal assistants or more admin into the people. Then what we see is we take that process and we put it offshore. Yeah. Because the cost comes down. But what we looked at was actually let's look at the whole process and see where the actual issues are and where this time is being created and basically fix those problems.
Yeah, perfect. And I think this is one of the really huge strengths of tech, isn't it? Is that where you've got a process that requires a person to run around between the different processes to pull the information from one section and take it to the next. That's probably the best place in your business where you could introduce a technology to clean that up and make it more automatic. So what's we've heard a lot about the benefits to agents, obviously. If I'm a real estate customer, if I'm selling my property at the moment, what are the benefits to me or to me as a buyer even? So
the main benefits are, let's just use two different scenarios. So main benefits are if you're at a point of a listing and you've got an investment property, the current process has always been that the agent prepares a document. They'll scan that document in, email it off to the interstate vendor. They then print that off, sign it, scan it, send it back.
Yes, it's painful.
24 hours is arduous. What we can actually do with the agency agreement is they can prepare everything digitally and the compliance is already handled. So they've got one succinct process that they're able to follow and then send out to the client. They can simply sign it, send it back without printing an off or anything like that. The other big part of it is offsite signing for contracts as well. So we've had one just last week where the buyer was actually over in China. They were able to load that contract up into our system, send it for offsite signing and get it back instantly so they could transact it straight away. So what it's doing is it's actually bringing the days on market down as well because you know where your buyer is. You can't get the contract to them because at the moment, particularly, you can't get it into China or you can't get it out back to Australia. So was able to speed up this entire process for that real estate agent, which meant the vendor got to sell their property in a quicker process as well.
Fantastic. And I guess you're not getting asked a million times, to fill in addresses or to, just because no one wakes up in the morning and wants to do paperwork, do they? And I think this is fantastic. I once nearly lost a property that I bought because the agent kept emailing me the documents and I was working from news at the time and we had a 10 meg limit on the on your attachment level, and so it kept bouncing because the document, every time someone printed it out, signed it and scanned it and then sent it back, it got bigger and bigger and bigger until it was about a 20 meg document, and the whole deal nearly fell over. It wasn't until the last minute that we worked out why the hell it hadn't come through. They thought I was the one that was holding it up and I was waiting on the paperwork. So tell me about how you evolved from BidTracker. Well, tell me about how BidTracker came about and how you guys then evolved to Real-Time Agent.
Yep. That's an interesting question. So Gus and I had worked together in the past on different real estate projects and Angus was running his own office. He really was the ideas behind BidTracker. Let's call it V1. The two of us joined forces and kind of worked away at solving this auction reporting process problem that was really easy to see for us because Angus was living and breathing it on a Saturday. So we went about solving that problem first, and then from there it kind of grew out, and we looked at, okay, well, that's one efficiency in the office. Where else can we put some efficiencies into this process? And we noticed that there was basically these dark or black holes in the process when it went offline, which was what Angus was talking about earlier in regards to the transactional process with the real estate agent when they're with the vendor or with the buyer. And that's where we looked at it and said, okay, well, hold on, BidTracker is not really going to fit across this product suite, so it's time to change the name. So what we did was basically elevated real-time agent as the parent product, for lack of a better term, and then basically we've got our RTA or real-time agent authorities agency agreements, BidTracker in the middle, and then digital contracts at the end of the transacting process.
So it was actually our customers that came to us and started saying we need to change your name because we had these digital agency agreements for authorities out in the world, and agents were in the living room with the vendor, and they're saying, okay, we're going to sign up our new listing on the BidTracker, and it just didn't make sense for the client.
It feels a bit scary, doesn't it? Ooh, what are you tracking? What?
Yeah.
Exactly right.
We're all very sensitive to that these days. So who are your competitors in this space?
So the general competitors that we get that come up is DocuSign, I would say most of the time.
So do you use DocuSign or is it... No.
Yeah, we tried to use it at the beginning. The problem we run into is DocuSign's just a digital signature. What's actually the really valuable part of the process is being able to grab the vital information that's off the contract or the agency agreement and then integrate it back into their CRM, send the letters and do all the automation off the back. We couldn't do that with DocuSign. The other big one was it doesn't work offline. And what we were finding is we tested it with agencies. Two major things happen. Internet dropped out. Agent loses all confidence straight away. You're signing a contract. You need it to work 100% of the time. The other one was just the latency in emails. So because of the way the unique links were generated, you would be sending off one party to party A, being the vendor. They sign their part. It's coming back to the purchaser. But that process could take 10 minutes to wait for that new signature or that new envelope to come back, which didn't work, and it was too slow.
Yeah, and also the combination.
If you're in an auction scenario, you want to get the deal done as quickly as possible and get everyone out of the room before anyone changes their mind effectively.
Yes.
So it just doesn't work.
If you're the vendor, you just want it done because you just want to crack that bottle of champagne as quickly as you can.
Yeah, that's right.
Don't you? Yeah.
You've been a nervous wreck for 5 or 6 weeks while you've been doing all your opens.
With that last little bit of extraordinary pressure that happens at the end that completely explodes your brain. Yes, I remember it well.
Exactly right. The other reason why a lot of the digital signing platforms didn't really work for us and we went down the path of building our own is that combination of in the room and offsite. So in all of our documentation, you can basically, let's say you're in the room and you've got a husband and wife, one party's in the room, one party's at work or at an office, let's say. Basically, we can do the combination of the two. We keep the document stored and it's encrypted throughout the whole process. So we can give people access as required. Yeah. And that's the kind of control that we didn't get with third-party applications.
And so do the agents upload their own forms that they've got, or are you using... How do the forms work?
There's a few different options there. So we basically got the ability to put in fully customised forms. So it depends on how the agency wants to work. Or we've got a really exciting integration with the REI Forms guys. Forms Live at the moment that's going live. So if you're a Forms Live member, you can use your forms, and we don't charge any extra for that.
Fantastic. Okay.
So the problem that our customers were facing was there's more and more compliance coming into our market. Means more forms. So comparable
more forms,
sales,
more admin.
Exactly. And so a lot of the agencies we're finding are leaning on the REI more so to be able to get those forms and that documentation, because it's not just an agency agreement anymore that needs to be signed at time of listing, or they're getting their own done as well. So we had to build the flexibility to be able to upload a document from the REI or a document from anywhere at all.
Yep. Fantastic.
And we've got ad hoc forms as well, vendor checklists and all kinds of different things that kind of come into the system in different shapes and forms, which we've just been able to provide that flexibility. So we hold hands a lot through the start of the process with a new business coming on, and make sure that we're not missing too many gaps in their existing process, or missing any forms and things like that. So, we've got a lot of flexibility there.
Let's just pause there for a moment and hear a quick word from our sponsors. If your business is growing quickly, you need to scale your team. Beepo is an Australian outsourcing company that specialises in helping real estate and technology businesses to grow. Outsourcing is not just about bringing on staff with a lower cost base. Beepo recruits and manages staff based in the Philippines who will become full-time members of your team. They will help you identify the key skill sets, the employment history and other attributes that you need from your employees and match your requirements with the right staff. Beepo will also help you to break down your structure, job descriptions, task management, and to understand how having a virtual team fits into your organisation. Done properly, outsourcing can help you understand the internal processes of your business, drive your efficiency, and provide you with a roadmap for growth. So talk to Beepo and scale your business for success. So tell me about your growth trajectory. So what were some of the key markers along the way as you guys have grown? And I guess that's the segue into the domain conversation, but let's start from the beginning.
So the three biggest milestones for Dan and I have been that we reached 40% of the Victorian market, of transactional market, in about 18 months.
Wow, that's fantastic.
With just the two of us running, and then we effectively went, okay, we actually need to go and raise some capital, and we need to start to build out this business and build a team, because we've got customers, but to keep going and keep iterating at the same rate, we couldn't keep doing it ourselves. The other big one has been last year we transacted over $50 billion worth of property has been sold through just last year. So that was a huge one. And then what was our other third largest one, Dan?
I think we're up to 1 in 10 homes in Australia now go through the real-time agent platform. Nationally.
Wow, okay. That's fantastic.
Yeah. So it's we are predominantly Victorian based in our customer base. That's upwards of 65% now from a market share standpoint. But we're very much focused on New South Wales, and Angus has moved up there to kind of lead the boots on the ground there.
So Carl, I think that leads into the domain question really well around why have we done the deal and what does it mean and what's it mean moving forward as well. So effectively, we got to a point where we were raising our Series A, went out to the market, Domain came and said, hey, we'd be interested in doing something. It ended up being a full acquisition, but it's allowed us to stay on with the business for quite a few years. The other really great thing about that as well is that we actually have access to their sales force as an introduction to be able to scale our business up. But the other main thing is we talked to various businesses along the way that are from the industry or just sitting outside of it who were interested in what we were doing. Definitely by far the Domain is very pro-agent and has definitely aligned themselves really strongly with agents in the industry, which sat really well with us and with the business. Which effectively, because what we're doing is our product's a little bit different. We don't do a hard sell. It's more of a consultative sell into the business and sit down and understand their pain points before selling our product back to them, which is a little bit different approach to other products. And I think for them as well, a big part of it was we're still effectively a startup, but we now have the Domain group above us that we can access for leadership, we can access for resources, we can get introductions to people. If we've got issues with technology, we can certainly go in there and ask them, hey, what should we do about this problem we're facing? So there's a lot of different areas of expertise, but we still get to have that nimble ability that most startups want, and it is what allows you to excel very quickly and iterate very quickly. So it's been a really good deal for us to do.
Fantastic. So I guess the question that I was dying to know when I saw the news out there, like in real estate in Australia, there's two teams. There's the green team and the red team. Does being on the green team prevent you from selling to anyone who's a predominant user of the red team?
Not at all.
It's not changing your market. It doesn't change your market scope at all.
We very much pushed throughout our journey that we wanted to stay, whether it was CRMs, whether it was proposal systems, whether it was payment systems, to be as agnostic as possible.
Yep.
And that doesn't change for a portal. So for us, it's whilst we might have our green underpants on, whilst we're at work and whilst we're selling our product, it doesn't really. We don't have that direct feed into a portal where someone who wears their round underpants on the other side would say we don't want to use the platform because we're supporting the wrong team.
Right.
It is very much about we are agent services, and that seems to be a really big focus for Domain.
And I think to add to that, we've still got a partnership in place with REA to be able to supply auction results to them as well. I think that's us being agnostic to it. I think it's kind of gone are the days of you being able to sell off your business or your piece of technology to just what you do. I think now you've got to integrate with everyone. You've got to be open to doing things together because it's more about the customer than it is about your business as such.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So what's protecting you guys a little bit is the fact that you're not plugged into that portal, you're not delivering services directly to that portal. What you're really doing is enabling the agents to transact as quicker, and so that's part of Domain's bigger strategy of being sort of end-to-end services for agents, isn't it? Of which the portal is one, and I guess you guys are part of the other as well.
I think it's just an overarching thing to say, having a really strong alignment with the industry, and where they're going.
Yeah, fantastic. So what's your business model? Like, you subscription based or per report, per document based, or how does that work?
So it used to be per office. Now, as we've scaled up and we've moved away from just being an auction-centric business where we can do private sales, do auctions, do all kinds of stuff, we wanted it to be more suited for everyone. So we've changed it to a per head basis. So we charge on a per user model, which allows us to get a small office who may be doing less sales, which probably has less salespeople in it, up to a really big business that's got, say, 20 salespeople doing 500 sales a year. It just scales accordingly to how big their business is. So it seems to be an easier model.
And have you got any case studies of how agents have been able to use it effectively, or how much time they're now saving?
I think the case study we put together to get that 244 minutes saved is probably the biggest one. And we made sure that we did it in the right way. There's things that we've kind of foregone in that case study because we know there were edge cases for that particular business, and just focus on the core things that we know are happening across the industry. Besides that, it's really hard to put a dollar amount on it, and it's probably not for us to do, just because it's probably their arbitrage as opposed to ours. We just provide the facts of how much time they can save. Whether people decide to let people go within their business generally hasn't happened for us. It's more they're reallocating those staff to more dollar productive items. So instead of doing data entry, they're focusing on social media or something else inside that business to actually grow it.
Trying to take them out of the operating costs and put them above the line to revenue producing activities. And supporting a sales team, or it might be customer care or something like that, as opposed to just being there, just typing in information or sending off emails and things like that. I guess one of the best anecdotal pieces of evidence we get is when an agent calls and says they've made us way more efficient, and I'm able to pick up my kids from school and sign up a listing at the same time using the platform. Just that mobile nature of it, where you don't have to make sure you've got your authority or agreement pad in your bag. You've just got to have your iPad.
So what I'd really love to understand is on the podcast before I've had we had Dave Stewart from MarketBuy, and I had Kate Chalk from Rezo, and these kind of negotiation platforms. Are they alternatives to you guys, or do they fit in with you guys, or how does that whole end-to-end process work? And then on the other hand, you've got the proposals like Proposal Point and Pete Matthews one. Is that all part of a sort of like a whole spectrum of start and finish of agent services?
Yeah, they all are agent services, and I think they all do fit in the same category. They all do very different things. The Proposal Point one's probably a really good one to touch on. We have an integration with those guys. where basically, you finish a proposal, you click the button, it will launch into our system to allow you to do your actual documentation and make sure that all the compliance and everything that's relevant to that office is there. So that's kind of how that links together with your market buyers and Rezo and things like that. They still don't have a transaction piece of the platform. So they're handling the negotiation side and basically providing that auction type sale for a private treaty. However, when it gets to the stage of, actually, I think on market buyer's side, it says you have to sign the documentation within 24 hours. Otherwise, the property is not considered sold to you. As an example, there could be the potential there for us to take over the transaction piece.
So we've spoken to Kate in the past as well at Rezo.
That's right.
About how we might be able to actually be their transactional tool as well, so they can be their part of their process of negotiating, and we just fit in when it's time to transact. That's when our system is launched. Yeah. So that's some stuff that we're kind of working on in the background as well, is how can we kind of take it out and be a little bit more modular in our approach as well, because what they're doing is completely different to us. But on the surface, as Dan said, it is sitting in the same category, same as your realtors, same as all the proposal point, all those guys. And I think it's one of those things where everyone thinks the problem is really simple until they start trying to solve for it.
Till you start walking around with a stopwatch waiting for seeing how long people losing 4 hours of your life chasing someone. I can imagine.
We've got a real appreciation for everyone that what they're trying to do, because we know that we definitely couldn't do it as well as them.
Yeah, fantastic. So what does the future hold for you guys? You're expanding into New South Wales. You've got a lot of and you've got a lot of sort of money, I guess, and energy happening behind you with the Domain crew behind you. What does your future look like for the next year or so?
Heads down, bums up.
Yeah.
We're very busy at the moment. New South Wales is our main focus. Angus is building an awesome team up there. We've had a few new starters already just prior to Christmas. So we do have our own sales team that sits outside of the Domain Domain sales team, and account management and customer success. That all sits under the RTA brand. In Victoria, it's about depth and making sure that utilisation is as high as possible. And making sure that any further processes that we can bring and integrate into the workflow for those existing customers is done in a really let's say beautiful way, because there's plenty of integrations out there that don't necessarily work really nicely, and we like to make it as good as possible.
So we'd love to replicate what we've done in Victoria and New South Wales, but at the same time, revenue is obviously important to our business, but we take very seriously and have a big impact on our people and our business of what's our retention rate, which sits at 98%, which is pretty good.
Fantastic.
So we're pretty proud of that.
Yep.
And the utilisation of about 85 to 90% on a weekly basis. So they're the things that we look at really heavily, because we're an efficiency product. Efficiency is only as good as if everyone's doing the office. If you're still doing paper process for one person, the whole system falls down and you lose a bit of that efficiency. So we have a strong focus on that to try and help these agencies to get everyone over the line, because change management's hard, as we all know in tech.
So basically, what we're seeing in businesses is the change management has to really come top down, not only just top down, but a little bit of bottom up as well. But we've got younger people coming into these businesses that are really well established, have been driven by these principles to their size over the last 20, 25 years. And the principles that are adopting change and they're kind of saying, hey, I'll be the one to test it in my office first, I want to be the one to be the first on the platform. That attitude really sprinkles down throughout the whole business, and those guys have a great experience. Where we have offices that with directors or principals that aren't as open to it, or a little bit more afraid of what the changes will bring, you can see that does trickle down through the business as well. So we very much like to work with all principals and understand why they might not be open to the change, and then basically hold their hand through that process.
I really do think that this year one of the key things that the industry is going to learn to get its brain around, or like I think the key challenge for the real estate industry at the moment is not really tech, but is more around change management, and how do we adopt technology into our businesses, and how do we make sure that's not a terrifying experience, that we actually do it in ways that, you know, we can test and learn and then scale and get confident that we've chosen the right thing and that it's doing what we want. So it's really interesting that you say that.
The last thing we want is to, let's say an agent goes live on our authority or agency agreement platform. They go into a listing presentation. They've got their scripts and dialogues and their usual flow of how they do a presentation. If they've not had the time to understand how this fits into their process as their new scripts and dialogue, they're going to have a bad time.
Yeah.
So whilst it's easy to use, it's something different to what they're currently doing. So we have on-site training as part of our onboarding, and we do have support there as well that's really responsive. So, and like Gus was saying, we track utilisation. If we can see things might be dropping off or there's issues popping up, we'll be proactive and go and see that office or group and make sure we understand why.
So to your point, Kylie, the other thing that we're doing is, the nature of real estate businesses, generally speaking, principal says, let's do this, let's get on board. And the fallback or the support position is the sales coordinator or the sales administrator. And they're the person trying to help the agents change as they go. We've taken a slightly different approach. We try and take a lot of that work off them. And what we actually do is we run a 6-week induction, which is basically tracking utilisation week in, week out to try and have different benchmarks at different weeks. Which, if they drop below a 70% utilisation rate, we're sending a naughty list to the sales administrator, but it's also prompting our team to call that individual and say, hey, let us know what's going on. How can we help you? It looks like you're not using it. 9 times out of 10, it's solved over the phone, to Dan's point. It's just purely based on confidence and attitude towards things. If you're willing to adopt new technology, you've got an open mind about it, you'll figure out a way to make it work, as opposed to the ones that don't, and then it's a little bit more resistant.
Yeah. But look, if you can save 4 hours per property, per agent, for everything, like that starts to really add up over time, doesn't it? It really does. So what is the next year? 12 months is going to be super busy. What does the next 5 years hold for you guys? Are you looking at going overseas? Or are you staying, state by state? It seems that the legislation that operates in each state is part of the thing that you guys have to adopt to each time you move into a new market. How does that affect your overseas ambitions?
It gets easier each time because we obviously go in with open eyes that we need flexibility. So anything we kind of build or have built over the last kind of 24 months, we've really made sure that, okay, we don't 100% scope for that state or country or whatever it might be, but hey, we know that there's going to be flexibility required over here, so let's build it in a way that it isn't concrete. And that's testament to our development team, who they are all onshore, for anyone that's wondering. We built a team here, and that is their focus is basically they understand they have to maintain their own code in the future, so they kind of make their job easier in the first place rather than let's just get it done. So what does your future look like?
Yeah, so it's more about our main focus for the next 2 to 3 years is Eastern Seaboard, so capturing as many transactions across that as well. And then looking at what we can do to assist the agent in being more efficient. What are the other systems that we need to plug into? There's a good few years of work there, I'd say, before looking overseas.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Let's just pause there for a moment and hear a quick word from our sponsors. As a real estate agent, you know you need to be doing more content marketing. But creating posts for social media, creating videos and reports is hard work, lots of hard work, and it takes time. So that's why you need HomePrezo. If you're a typical agent posting 1 or 2 social media posts a week, HomePrezo can save you between 75 to 100 hours a year. How many more properties could you sell if you had that time back? HomePrezo can help you create engaging, informative videos about how the property market in your local suburb is performing. Plus, it makes creating suburb reports, rental videos for landlords, and social media infographics an absolute piece of cake. If you can type in a suburb or type an address, you can create a Prezo using HomePrezo in just a few minutes. Listeners to the PropTech podcast receive a 14-day free trial. Now that's twice as long as the normal free trial. So go to homeprezo.com.au and click the sign up button and use the code PropTech to get your extended free trial. Or click the link in our show notes. And so what are the trends that you see coming down the pipe in real estate that are going to dramatically impact the industry or change the industry? And how will they impact on what you guys are doing?
I think personally for me, looking at models like the agency and the more centralised brokerage model, where you're actually leveraging all your resources and your support and centralising it, that's a really interesting model to watch. I think it's something that will grow, very similar to the conveyancing space as well. You get all of these ageing population of people who are retiring out of small businesses and they don't really have a succession plan in place.
Yeah.
So we'll already see a lot of consolidation across the industry in the next 5 to 10 years of these businesses being acquired by your larger or boutique franchises as well.
Yep.
But I think there's a bit of a shift that the franchises are starting to go through now, where what kind of things can they pull together to centralise all of the system and process that they're doing to make sure they remain profitable as well. And there's certainly a lot of good tech out there that can help them do that. But it's also, as we said before, about change management and getting their people with their heads around that as well.
Well, I think we're seeing a couple of things, aren't we? We're seeing this sort of demise of the selling principle. I can't see how they're going to how that is going to survive or thrive for a huge amount of time longer. And I think also we're seeing the franchises become responsible for their own tech stack of how they want to do change management across their groups, but they don't own the tech stack any longer like they did. So, 5 years ago, everyone was doing their own tech and it was all limited by their own imaginations. But now it's changing again.
Yeah, I think as the integrations and the complexity of different systems grows and the different influences from the different customer bases that are involved through all those systems, I think those franchises will come up with their own recipes. I give you the analogy of, let's use McDonald's, who's like completely systemized in the way they operate. They don't necessarily own all of the different machinery that works within their setup to let's say fry their fries as an example. But they've designed and they've worked through how to make that most efficient for their setup, and then worked with somebody who's a specialist in that field to build that piece of machinery for them. Now, that's not in all cases. There's lots of stuff that they do build themselves, but it's that combination. So I think what we'll find is basically we'll have different brands or different groups coming up with their recipe of how they do real estate. And I think that's where your personal brands will become more and more elevated as we go through time for agents working under these overarching banners, or let's call it the workhorse or the machine behind them. That they punt everything in there to get done for them, so they focus on the sales side. And that's where that we can foresee that that's what's likely to happen. And we've taken a pretty big bet on that, and that's why we have that agnostic approach, as opposed to being locked down and we're only going to work with these people and we're only going to push these products. But in saying that, we'll always if we're asked for recommendations, we'll try and put forward the best of breed in those necessary categories.
Yeah. And we do tend to be moving in the PropTech space into this in open source API, and everyone being able to plug into each other's stack and then hand off to the next thing, so that you can actually get that customization around building, working out what service you want to deliver and how you want to deliver it and what you want that to look and feel like to your customers, and then working out how the tech stacks up to create that experience.
That might be a good topic for you to handle, Kylie, with the new industry body that you.
Yeah. Yes, because there's not. Yes, no. I think it's a great topic. Well, we'll be talking about it at the PropTech pop-up on the Gold Coast this year. That's
very good.
That's slated for that. Definitely, it requires a good one. So guys, look, thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else that you want to tell those PropTechers out there about what they need to be doing? Is AI going to play a role at all, do you think?
Yeah, I think it definitely will. I think it's about trying to simplify it to get the agent to understand it on an office-based level. It's probably the biggest thing they're facing at the moment. But it will come with time. I mean, we're seeing it evolve so quickly. It's obviously working pretty well on the States. The States have adopted it pretty well. Obviously, you've been over to Inman as well, like we have. Seeing it over there, it's a huge focus. I don't think it's had the full impact yet on the Australian market quite yet, though.
No. And do you see it coming into your tech?
We'll see.
Yeah, that's a good question. It's not something we have a focus on right now. For us, our key focus is how do we keep the agent relevant in the conversation. And it's a conversation that we have often, even within Domain, because it depends who you talk to. If you're talking to a buyer, they're saying they've got a problem with transparency. If you talk to a vendor, they're saying, I've got a problem with I need the biggest price. So I don't know how we handle that in a way without any personal touch or trust. And I don't think we can trust the robots just yet.
And without going to a US model with a buyer and a seller's agent as well.
Yeah.
Because it's an interesting thing, and Dan and I talk about this all the time. When you're a buyer, you're really frustrated by underquoting and the perception of what the market value is. But as soon as you become the seller, you're happy to underquote it because as long as whatever maximizes the total return on your investment, you're happy to do so. So it's this really hard thing because it's the same customer, just in a different category, a different pipeline or part of the process.
Yes, and as soon as you've sold your property and you've got your money in your back pocket and you're out buying, suddenly your perceptions change immediately, don't they?
Yeah, that's right.
Everything's so fickle.
Everything's so expensive.
That's right. Exactly right. Even though you've got a record price.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. It's never enough. It's never enough. Well, look, Dan and Angus, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you joining us here on the PropTech podcast.
Absolute pleasure.
And best of luck with Real Time Agent.
Thanks, Kylie. All the best with your podcast.
So that was Angus Ferguson and Daniel Portelli from Real Time Agent. And I think what the guys have done at Real Time Agent is extremely clever. I love how Angus followed around clients with a stopwatch and that the proof point that created for their product. If you go to the Real Time Agent website, you can see their savings calculator. Type in the number of properties you typically sell and it'll provide you with a pretty compelling value proposition of the time that you can save. And with time savings of up to about 4 hours per property, why on earth would you want to keep manually managing the paperwork? Real Time Agent is a great example of technology that gives agents their lives back. And with now more than 4,000 agents using their systems, they've got $40 billion in property that they've transacted in just 3 years, and they've recorded over 285,000 bids, and that's mainly from their home base in Victoria. But they do have some pretty big targets to set as part of their Domain deal, growth of more than 200%. So it will be interesting to see how they go, and we wish them all the best. And if you're an agent that specialises in auctions in New South Wales or Queensland, check them out. It will well be worth the time that you save. Now, if you've enjoyed this episode of the PropTech podcast, we would love you to tell your friends or drop me a line either via email, LinkedIn, or our Facebook page. And please tag friends that you think would love to hear this episode, shout them out so that they hear the news. You can follow the podcast on Spotify, Google Podcast, or Apple iTunes. I'd really like to thank my audio support, Charlie Hollins and the fabulous Jill Escudero, and our sponsors Beepo, making outsourcing easy, and Home Prezzo, turning your data into amazing marketing content. That's all for this week. Until next time, keep on PropTeching.